Hello, welcome to Cheery Conversations. I am here with one of my closest friends, Hashmareen Griffin, and many of you, if you've been around Sean and I for any length of time, we've talked about them. You may have heard Pastor Alan, Hush's husband, come and preach for us. He lifts people on stage, he carries them, he is known to take his clothes off partially on stage. Alan is amazing. And so we've gotten to share Alan with many of you, but Hush and Alan, even though they've been in town and frequented the exchange, you may have seen this gorgeous model-looking woman walk through the exchange, and that is Hashmareen. So Hush, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Pastor Sonny. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to be on here.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. So we're going to talk today about you being different. And actually, I started with this thought because you're a leader that doesn't come across like this great, strong, robust leader. And that's what I love about you, and people who have worked with you and for you love, is that you're this quiet, calm, gorgeous human. And actually, it takes about 3 minutes to know you're kind and soft-spoken, really, but you are such a great leader. And then you also have other things that you do that it's like, wow, she's done that. She's a pastor's wife, an evangelist's wife, but she was a supermodel. And you were different in that you were in that industry, yet you were a virgin. You and Alan were pure when you got married. That's different. And then obviously you also came from Sri Lanka. I mean, you're beautiful and you're exotic and people are like, oh, where are you from? You've gotten that your whole life, but that is different. And so I wanted our viewers today to hear about that and how you've actually taken different, and it's been an advantage and it's been a blessing. Not just that you've taken and made a blessing and God's used, but a blessing to other people around you. So, and in talking about that, I'm sure you can even now talk about a little bit about you and your background.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Pastor Sonny. You know, I absolutely adore you. You guys are such heroes to me and Alan, and you guys are such amazing overcomers and heroes that we have watched over the years, and just everything you've done in excellence. So successful. We absolutely love your family, and I so appreciate you having us on, or actually having me on. I get to talk more.
You kind of come with Alan because you're going to talk about Alan and our husband's bromance. Yeah.
I know. Oh my goodness. It's actually really sweet. I absolutely love their friendship. And if I could choose anyone in this world to be friends with my husband, it would be Pastor Sean Hennessy. So I love their unified front. They are amazing. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was born in Sri Lanka, and it is a predominantly Buddhist nation. So I've always felt different. I've always felt like a bit of an outsider, kind of always observing from behind the scenes or from the outside. And, in Sri Lanka, just being a Christian is like a 2% population of our country are Christians. And so, just watching everyone else worship other things other than Jesus Christ has been kind of different, and then moving to the States and being an immigrant where I eat with my fingers. You guys have witnessed that,
She still eats with her fingers.
I do. I absolutely love it. I always say the food tastes better. Just being in this culture and just immersed in it, it was just so different for me, and it was tough at times. People thought I was strange. I got teased for it in school, but I always had this sense of self and confidence that I feel like God gave me. And going into the modeling industry, like you mentioned, I felt like that was also a way where I was like on the outside. I was, this Holy Spirit filled Christian. However, I'm in this worldly, secular industry that was, just different. And people always came to me and they were like, man, what is that like? Or, they didn't know if I loved them or if I was judging them or, if I even wanted to be a part of their life, because of my lifestyle. And so it was really tough growing up, but I really loved every ounce of it. I learned so much from it.
Well, and you would be the epitome of that person that you say, just change your perspective and it changes everything.
Yes.
It's like you were born with this innate ability to have perspective, a good perspective. So you're in Sri Lanka and you don't fit in, and you come to America and you feel like you didn't fit in the modeling industry, but you use that to your advantage.
Yes.
Do you feel like, I feel like you were born with that, but obviously even if you were born with that kind of thinking, what do you do when you feel you're losing that, or you're impressed and in hard times and you're like, okay, I'm not feeling the happy perspective? What are some tools for our listeners and our viewers to change perspective like you've had to?
Well, I think perspective is so key, because what you're saying is such a key word. Perspective, is only my point of view, and it's not necessarily reality. So as I was growing up, I remember thinking I was like this awkward, very Indian girl with this heavy, thick accent. And
I love it when you talk like that.
Yeah, and I had these knobby knees and skinny legs and frizzy big hair, almost 6 feet tall. I just really stood out. And I always felt awkward. But I found out later in life, as I talked to some of my old school friends or peers, that they admired me or they looked up to me. And in reality, I think all of us human beings, all of us women, we all feel this way. We all feel insignificant or, not quite who we should be. We tend to compare ourselves to others, or I don't look like her, or, I'm not smart as her, I'm not talented like her, and so when I realized like, wow, I'm really special, like people respect me and they thought of me in a different way, and they had the same fears and insecurities that I did, it really changed perspective for me,
Wow.
and I think one of the things to remember is to be okay with being uncomfortable. I felt like, okay, this is all right that I'm uncomfortable, and I'm going to force myself to be who I really want to be. So I was this very shy, awkward, ugly duckling that I felt like I was, and I forced myself to pretend I wasn't shy so I could be friendly, because a lot of people thought I was either stuck up or something's wrong with her, because I wouldn't speak as much. And when I forced myself to come out of that and what I was used to, I made so many friends and I opened up my arms to them, and people felt more comfortable being around me.
Yeah. Wow. You then went from what you thought was an ugly duckling,
yes,
to a supermodel. Isn't that just like God? Right. How did that feel when you're walking the runways in, where was it? London, Paris?
All of those places. Well, so I was discovered at 14 by a New York modeling agency. And through my career up to the age of 30, I got to travel internationally. So I've been to London and Italy and Australia and, of course, all the major fashion capitals of the US, like LA, Miami, and New York. And so what I stood out most is in the era that I grew up, during that fashion time in my life, was the 80s and the 90s, where you didn't see, a very exotic looking girl. You generally saw the all-American, or you saw a very classic Black beauty. And you didn't see that in between. You didn't see the Latinas, you didn't see the Asians, you didn't see, anyone that looked like me. And when I left my career, I had created a niche for a look that looked like me, that clients would try to replace because I left the industry. They thought,
You're kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Yes, absolutely. They were like, we need a girl that fills that look, And so every city I left, they had to pull and find someone to replace that exotic look. So
wow. So let's camp on that.
Yes.
Let's camp on that. You carved out a part of the industry for your look when what you thought about yourself, which would be the devil, the enemy, trying to speak that over you, ugly duckling,
completely.
make you feel bad, that you not only go on to be a supermodel, but you carve out your specific look in the industry. Like talk about the epitome of what Satan means for evil, God means for good. And it couldn't have happened with a nicer person to do it. So, okay, keep going on. So move on. You went all the way to age 30 though.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
I did. I had Israel, my oldest, who is 17 now. And, your body changes. And I decided that now it was time to kind of put my career aside and focus on family and be with my kids. And so that's when I stopped. But yeah, just being at that time, the enemy is constantly putting thoughts, constantly putting doubts. Sometimes it's not even the world. It's your own battle in your own mind that you have, and you have to keep the word in mind all the time. When God says, I knitted you in your mother's womb. He cares so much for us. He sings love songs over us. He captures every tear we cry. He loves us. He loves the smell of us, everything about us. And when you come to true realization of how much God loves us individually, you can be so powerful. And when you realize how God loves us, our own uniqueness, and how he has set us apart, that we are weird, that we are peculiar, and that's okay. God can use that, and he will use you in a huge and mighty way, That's and so once you are content and you feel good about that and really truly understand that, grasp that process, it can be so powerful.
So good. And again, it's perspective, and it's, you had this great foundation. There's a lot of people who are listening and watching, they didn't have that foundation of God. But of course, we have that opportunity every day. But it is so hard when we've been in a world of comparison. And like you said, it's not even just the world that told you look different. It was your own mind and the enemy in your ear. I often think about, I believe comparison is the great crippler, but I think when comparison cripples us, maybe if we're in the mode of comparing, the other thing, rather than just say, flee from me, comparison, I'm not going to do it. What if we were equal opportunity comparers? And you said this early on, I'll compare with those people I'm not as pretty, as skinny, as popular, as well-spoken, but I rarely compare with the people who I'm more well-spoken and I'm further along in my Jesus journey and I do have a more solid marriage. Not to judge them, but to know that I could have it better, but I could have it worse. So if you're going to compare, you got to compare both ways. And you said that you realize there's people just as insecure as you in different ways. That right there is a tool to shift our perspective, right?
Oh, completely. Completely. And I think that, once you really understand that concept, you can do anything, and as women, as just men in the world, or even in ministry, or, in church, as we're growing in the Lord, because I know there's so many people out there that are like, well, I didn't have that background. I didn't have that faith, but once you understand how much God loves you, you can really come into your own.
Yeah, for sure. So, Hush, I want you to talk about the fact that you are a leader, like you lead a ministry. You've started age out foster care ministry. That's amazing. You've led a staff, you lead a team, you're a mom of 2 teenage boys, which means you lead. And when Alan is gone, which he travels on the road a lot. You lead the boys in the home.
Yes.
But you're a different kind of leader. Tell us your leadership philosophy, because you can tell by listening to you, you're just such a kind soul. So how are you kind and you can be a leader?
Yes. Well, I always mess up American phrases, but one of those sayings about you can catch more bees with honey, right? Instead of we say neem, which is bitter, but if you have bitterness and your bark orders or you're bossy, like you're not going to get your way. Come on now, it's just common sense. Like a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of caressing. You really have to figure out how to read people, and what they need and what they want, and a little bit of praise, a little bit of love, a few compliments here and there. I'm not saying manipulate people, but be wise, and being sweet gets you much further in life than being in any other way. But one of my leadership techniques, I mentioned it to you a while back, is I love leading from behind. It's kind of like a leadership pack mentality thing. So, you have leaders, which is usually the strongest, healthiest leaders. They're usually in the front of the pack. And then you stick your young, the ones that need to be led. They're still growing, they're still learning. And then maybe the elderly and the sick, those are the packs that lead right after the front leaders. Then in the back where you have just everybody else, and then right in the back is more strong leaders who are constantly gathering the ones that stray away. They're gathering people as they're walking, the sick and the weak and the hurting. They're constantly gathering, because in my philosophy, I don't want anyone left behind. I want everyone to go with me where I'm going. And so that's how I tend to lead, is from behind.
Which is just as valuable, or some could say more valuable, because that leader who's out front, who never looks back. I mean, there's those that probably started out as Moses, and then when he started to look behind and listen to all the problems and complaints, he got his eyes off of what he needed to. He just needed to get out front and lead. So there's those. Right. But like you're talking about, those leaders that come behind and make sure that when the one strays off from the 99, they're seeing it. Because they're leading from behind, because you want that out front leader to keep walking, right? Like
you do,
that out
definitely.
front leader stops. We all just kind of, like little ducklings behind our mama. We all, fall down because it's a problem. So that's so good.
Exactly. And we are all members of one body, and that's the body of Christ, right? Yeah. And so all of us have a role, and you just figure out what your role is and what your strengths are, and that's how you lead. Like I know my husband and you, Sonny, and Pastor Sean, like all of you guys are strong, like upfront, forward leaders, but then what about the people in the back, so all of us leaders gathering around, is cause for a very strong, unified church body.
So good. And I think if someone's listening to this and they're in the context of a business they own or a team they manage, some of us, like, we're managers for an owner. And so we're leading, but then some of us are assistant managers, or we're workers for a manager. So we're not the top of the pole, of the flow chart. But I love how you're contextualizing that, because I look at our staff and I want them to think like leaders. Now, we all have our own roles and our functions, and we need people who vary in not just their desire, but their gifting. But I think when you do have people that are leaders on your team, you better lead strong so that the leaders feel like they're being led, because there's other leaders. And so, your husband leads strong. You bring up the back, leading from behind. And that it's almost like this, I mean, this sounds cheesy, but it's like this sandwich of leadership that is just functioning in all the role that's needed. And within that, you have people in between you and Alan, or we can have people in between us and the owner who are also leading from their strength, from their expertise.
Yeah. That's really
so good.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our sons your sons, I have one son, your sons are basically close to the same age as my kids.
Yeah, they are.
So isn't this a fun time, right? We've got Israel's going to be a senior next year. Our Isaiah's going to be a junior. We say our Isaiah and your Isaiah. Because you guys, when you were naming your Isaiah, you said, do you guys care if we name our Isaiah? And we're like, of course.
Right.
We've never lived in the same city, so unfortunately it's not been an issue.
Yeah, it kind of worked out.
Do you remember this? This is kind of funny. We came to your house. My Isaiah was playing with your Israel.
Yes.
And then you said to me, Sonny, I'm pregnant.
No. And
I
we were
laughed.
Like poor evangelists. We didn't know how we were going to pay for all of that.
Right? And we had just gone on the road to be evangelists. Yeah, both of us, both sets of us.
Yeah.
And I was that bad friend that didn't even fix my face. I'm like, I laughed. I belly laughed and said, that would suck. I did. I said that. That's terrible. I hope I hope I didn't negatively affect your Isaiah. But anyway, I'm like, that's because you were like, we were not trying. This is crazy.
Yeah, so it was a surprise.
So then Sean and I get in the car. We drive back to Tampa with our Isaiah in tow. And we're like, oh, look at, he's just so young. He's not even a year old.
Yep.
I get home. And I find out I'm pregnant.
Right?
And you and I were pregnant at the same time then with Aubrey and your Isaiah.
Tell me. Yes, I remember
I'm like,
that.
God has such a funny sense of humor. Like
sure
I wasn't pregnant before.
Yeah.
So
and then we were in the hospital at the same time. I loved it. It was so fun.
Yes. They were born just days apart. So cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, as a mom, as just a person that you're a natural leader, but you've even grown in more leadership. How are you raising boys? Let's talk about the fact that being parents of a teenager is being a leader.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes I feel like they're running me over, right?
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
so talk about that.
Yeah, so it's really challenging. I mean, I am blessed with two amazing boys. They're 15 and 17. And they really keep me on my toes. You know, they hold me accountable. They repeat what I say. If I go against something I said, they repeat it like, well, you said, Mom, you shouldn't be yelling at people when you're driving down the street. Don't call them idiots, like, oh. But
funny.
They are amazing boys, and they have very strong personalities, and they have their own will, and what I try to do as I'm raising these boys, I want them to be godly young men, choose really well for their futures. And, but I don't want to break their spirits. They need to know that I'm still the boss in the house while Dad's gone, and when Dad comes home, we're both the boss. And you still have to do what I say. You still have to do the dishes and go make up your bed and do your homework, and don't talk back and all that kind of stuff. But I still want them to dream and have huge vision for their life and just make them really strong, men. And because sometimes what I emulate and how I treat them, could maybe portray future when they marry their wives. They might pick someone maybe who henpecks them or nags and controlling. And I don't want them to see that example, And so I try to hear them. We have constant conversation about life and dreams and, and I think the key is to choose your battles and, choosing things that really matter. But if I choose to fight in that battle, I'm going to be the one that wins because I'm Mom, and so it's really key because sometimes we can fight over the dumbest stuff like their hair, I'm like, Lord, can they please cut their hair? It looks like a mop on top of the head. But I know I'm getting old. That might not be the cool style right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, let me give them a little bit of freedom in that area. It's not a battle I even want to fight. So.
Right. Well, and I love that you said, pick your battles and then the battles you select, win them.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, the hair, that's a great example. I had someone tell me, they're like, man, I can't get my teenager, I mean, he's like 18, so he should know better. He's going to move out soon. I can't get him to change his own oil or cut his hair.
Yes.
But here's the battle so that was their battle.
Right.
Their battle wasn't that they weren't taking him to church. He wasn't in a youth ministry. He wasn't around Christian kids.
Right.
And I knew this person pretty close, so I kind of knew. And I said, I don't think that the reason he, yells at you or says, I'm not changing my own oil or doesn't cut his hair, I don't think that the source of that is the hair or the oil. I think the source is he isn't seeing you be a Jesus person. He isn't seeing you, kind of have this moral compass, this standard. So he's just all over the place. And then the battle you want to fight is over the hair. He's 18. It's hair.
Exactly.
But if the battle were, you don't have to have a relationship with Jesus, but I'm going to put you in a position to learn about him.
Yeah.
You're going to, you're going to watch this or you're going to attend this. That's a battle I'm going to win. If my kids didn't want to be a part of our church service and online and come into the living room, we would barrel roll them down the stairs that they're going to hear it.
Yes.
That's a battle we're going to win.
Yes.
Not that I don't understand why Aubrey wants to be in a sweatshirt all the time,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I love that. So, okay, well, Hush, we're wrapping up our time here, but I think I need to have you back again because we could talk about so much more.
Oh my gosh.
I love how you brought just the perspective today, and we touched on a lot of areas, but thanks for being one of my closest friends. I love you so much.
I love you.
Miss
oh my gosh.
you.
I miss you too. It is like 97 here in Florida, so you guys need to come down.
Well, it's about 80 here, so I'm not jealous right now.
Good.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a warm day and we're freaking out. We're like, turn down the air in Wisconsin. But I love you. And thank you for all the listeners and viewers. I'm sure you enjoyed Hashmareen. Hush and Alan have a ministry, and we'll put the link in here in the comments so that you can see how to connect or see what she does even more, what Alan does even more. Alan sits on our board, so they're a part of our life. They'll be a part of yours. And if you want to connect with me personally, you can go to sonnyhennessy.com. Let me know maybe what you want to hear. Maybe you have an idea for a guest to be on Cheery Conversations. But we love you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Love you. Bye, guys.
Love you.